Good Thursday, everyone. Welcome to the Volquest.com podcast presented by our good friends at Exterior Home Solutions. Be sure and check them out online at exteriorhomesolutions.com or give them a call at 865-524-5888. That's Exterior Home Solutions for all of your exterior needs, from roofing to siding, windows, decking, fencing, whatever. They can take care of you at Exterior Home Solutions. I'm Brent Hubbs, along with Austin Price and Rob Lewis. Glad to have you along on this mailbag edition of the podcast, and we've got plenty of questions to dive into. So let's just get started this morning, and we'll start with Run Through the T, who apologizes for the NIL rant last week, Austin Price, but he has a three-part question for you on some different topics today. Question number one: do you see a top 10 class in 2025 for the Volunteers?
I think a lot of it depends on the next, 2-3 weeks, right? I mean, you land the right players, then absolutely. I mean, if you think about, like, where will they go in the rankings if they add another 5-star in David Sanders? If they add, let's just say somebody like Jacoby Ward or another Josh Petty. Like, Josh Petty to me would be the ultimate, it's all of a sudden adding 2 5-stars if they go that way. If they add, Jaden Perlotte, if they add Shady Hayward, all these are, 5 to high end 4-star top players. And it just goes in Tennessee rocketing up the rankings, which right now they're kind of like 15 or whatever, just because they don't have that many committed. So, yes, they can get there. It just depends on kind of where they go and who they land the next, I said 2 to 3 weeks. I mean, even like into late July, early August.
Yeah, so to say, just the rest of the summer, essentially between now until the start of fall camp, right? I mean,
Yeah.
There'll be a couple kids go in early August, but much of the hay is going to be in the barn by the time fall camp starts on July the 31st. So the next 6 weeks, obviously pivotal. Question number 2 for everybody: do we think there will be a lot less looking over to the sideline and more of go, go, go this year? The biggest difference from 22 to 23 was we just kept the foot on the gas until we scored. In 23, we looked over too much, giving defenses breaks, and the offense just wasn't effective. I know we still went fast at times, but speed never felt like it was close to where it was the year before. Then you look at Golish at USF and see the speed again and wonder if that was missing with Golish in 23 or having Joe who couldn't process it fast. What do you say, Rob Lewis?
I mean, Hubbard, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I mean, I don't think they're all that much slower. I mean, I could be way wrong, and somebody could throw some data in front of me, and I look like an idiot. I don't think they ran that many less plays per minute, or however you break it down. I do agree they weren't as fast, and I think, and to me, and I don't mean to pile on the kid or be hypercritical. I mean, to me, that's about Joe, and maybe I'm wrong, but maybe I'm oversimplifying it. And again, I don't think they were that much slower. I think they were slower, and to me, I think it's about the quarterback.
I don't have the number in front of me. I'll have to go back and look at it. I should have looked this up. It's actually a really good question, but it feels like just in recounting last year, Austin, with a fewer amount of chunk plays that Tennessee had, they were in more third down situations last year.
I think that's a great
than
point.
They were in other years, and they typically do slow down in third down, right? I mean, they're trying to get into quote a perfect play, whereas if you were clicking off those 10-yard chunks or 8-yard and it's 2nd and 2 and you make a first down, it's go, go, go warp speed. But it's always slowed down when they got into third down. And I felt like they were in a lot more third down situations last year than they were the year before. I'll have to look the stat up. I don't know that right off the top of my head. But that's what it felt like, in addition to, and Joe said after in Pro Day, he liked going slower than he did going fast, right, AP? That they at times were not nearly as fast as they were the previous year. But I think that was a lack of explosion.
Yeah, I mean, like a big chunk plays. I think the quarterback change. I don't think it was, I don't think it had to do with Golish. Although I think Alex Golish is a really good football coach. I don't think Joey Halsley caused him to go, to quote, slower. I think that boiled down to the personnel. I've said, for several months, had Joey been calling the plays in 22 and Golish in 23, what do they look like? I would tell you that not much changes, because the personnel to me is the what dictated a lot of it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. His final question is: what did a day in the life look like for Austin Price, Brent Hubbs, and Rob Lewis when you were in your 20s? Is that the most unsure times of your life, not knowing what your future really is? AP, how are you in your 20s? Just like you are right now, running the show in charge of everything?
I would say personality-wise, I haven't changed at all. I would tell you that I play a lot less golf now. Contrary to popular belief, Austin plays a lot of nice places. Austin does not play a lot of golf. There's a huge difference. Like, I played a lot of golf back in my early to mid-20s before I was married, because what was I doing? I mean, I'm not a drinker.
Because you weren't married. That's why
I'm not a partier. Like, I'm no fun to go out late at night. I'm not that guy. But a good guy's golf trip, I am your guy. But yeah, I mean, just work, personality hasn't changed. I was driven then. I don't think I've changed in that regard.
Rob Lewis, what did your 20s look like? Is the statute of limitations passed enough?
Exactly the same. Exactly the same, Hubbard.
Playing a lot of golf, enjoying life, right? I was working full time with Mike Keith, doing whatever he told me to do. Is what I was doing in my 20s, trying to finish school. Northwest Georgia Vol wants to know, what is your favorite all-time thread on Volquest that went off the rails? This to me was tailor-made for you, Rob Lewis. You got one?
Man, I mean, I just have to admit to being old, Hubbard. There's so many. I mean, I know I'm forgetting a million. I mean, I really don't even think it was that great. I remember the Eric Berry hat thing, and I don't even think that thread was that great at all. But that's the one. That's probably the oldest one I remember that keeps getting brought back.
Dude, it changes on a daily basis. I mean, just this week we had one go off the rails with CSW Vol, and then people arguing back and forth with him. There's one all the time, so I don't think I'm with Rob. There's just too many. Like, it's one of those things too. Like, we're like, God, I'd have to sit here and think for a while just to think back to one that just, kind of just deteriorated hard.
Well, and I would, I mean, I hate to break it to people. I could probably, they all think it's a lot funnier than we probably do.
Yeah, I mean, going off the rails and just being, just a normal post going off the rails is one thing, as opposed to just a meltdown thread. Those are two totally different things.
Probably one of the Navy Guy 44's posts about Harrison Bailey.
Jbcollins wants to know, hypothetically, Nic Moore's coming to your school. Where do you play him at, Coach?
Center. I mean, that's what Tennessee's recruiting him as. It's pretty. I mean, I know he told Matt, like, don't have to really make a decision between offense and defense, but he kind of does. I mean, like, if he's going to Tennessee, he's going to play offense. If he's going to West Virginia, he's going to play defense. So what does he want to play? And does he think West Virginia's being truthful with him and that they're not actually going to move him to the offensive line once he gets there? I think Tennessee made up a ton of ground based off the fact he was going to commit to West Virginia a week ago. We'll see. But it certainly feels like Tennessee's got some momentum there right now.
VolumeShooter wants to know, biggest visitors this coming weekend. Travis Smith headlines that list at the top, right? Who else is your biggest visitors out of the, 12, 14? What do you think we're going to end up at?
Yeah, probably around a dozen. Bryce Jenkins, Douglas Utu, Travis Smith, Shady Hayward, obviously are all really, really high-end guys that Tennessee would love to add. But for me, it's Marion Dye, because, what he can do on the defensive line as a pass rusher. I'll go Marion Dye.
Yeah, and that's one AP that I wasn't sure how deep Tennessee was in there until after some of the conversations he had with some people at the On3 Elite deal. Felt like Tennessee was more real. I wasn't sure how real that one was for Tennessee up until that point. That was my viewpoint of it. Do you feel like Tennessee's more real there now than they were a month ago? Or do you think Tennessee's always been in there, they just haven't been talked about as much?
I think they've always been in there. I think a lot of people kind of pegged him at one point for Ohio State. Was Purdue going to throw their whole kit and caboodle NIL at him and just make him stay home? But I think, Tennessee, Georgia, and the other two you can't discount, but I definitely think Tennessee's in a solid spot heading into the visit. We'll see what happens coming out of it.
All right. The ADaug wants to know, looking at photos from official visits, it seems like a lot of schools do similar things with the kids. Has there ever been any event, location, activity that stood out as unique and helpful towards making a good impression? I see that Georgia is now doing a photo shoot inside a fake airplane, for example.
Yeah, I mean,
don't you guys think all that stuff's overblown?
I mean, it is to a degree, Rob. I don't think any kid's going, man, Clemson did that boxing ring photo thing, but I think it is a nice touch. I think kids
I agree with that, but I mean, I don't. Nobody's picking Georgia because they had their picture taken in effect
because they have an airplane backdrop.
Nobody's picking Tennessee because they rode a jet ski in the river or whatever.
I agree with that. At the end of the day, they're picking Tennessee or Georgia or wherever for the money, because I mean, in a lot of ways, that's what this is, right? Like, I'm not saying, look, there are instances where I think Tennessee has been second, third, or fourth in terms of what their NIL offer was on a kid, and that kid signed here. And there are instances where Tennessee's been first as far as NIL offer, and that kid's went elsewhere. So, like, the people that think that it's just straight money are wrong, but it's absolutely a factor. So you still have to have other things. You still have to have what the kid's looking for a major, because mama wants him to get a degree, right? Grandma wants him to get a degree. You still have to have, relationships with the coaches, and the coaches have to be able to connect and develop and put players in the NFL. All that stuff matters. So, yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I think it's a bit overblown, but I do think at the same time, kids love to post pictures on the old Instagram, and you want the coolest looking pictures in the room. What Tennessee has done with that one backdrop with the old school locker, love that. What they've done out there with the couch in the stadium, love that. Now, the one in the locker room, that's been done since Jeremy Pruitt, Butch Jones. Like, every coach has done that one with the T on the ceiling. It's okay for me. I like the new stuff. But I do like Clemson's boxing thing. I think that looked really good. And, I do think Georgia's private jet thing is cool, because at the end of the day, all kids want to what? Fly in a private jet.
It's just not a real private jet that they're hanging out in. But I'm with you guys. I mean, I think being unique is important. I think you're always looking for unique, which is why I think Tennessee's smart to use the river, and the water and everything that they do. That way you're trying to be unique. I also agree with you, Rob, that a kid's not making a decision because the backdrop at one school is better than the other. But you want the guy's picture. You want him to use that picture, right? You want him for that to be a picture that he remembers. So, I think you got to be creative there. That's why they got 9,000 creative people working in a department, right?
I mean, you got to have a level that you're at.
Sure.
I mean, you've got to keep up with the Joneses, but I mean, you can't just not have that kind of stuff. But I'm just saying.
Right, but it's also, as you're saying, I mean, you can't say, well, we lost that kid because the photo shoot wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just not – that kid was never coming here if somebody thinks that that's a realistic thing. All right, Wrong-Handed wants to talk a little basketball here. Over and under 36.5 points per game from Chaz, Igor, D-Stone next year. That's 72.5% of their production last year at their previous schools. Those three, Rob Lewis, over and under on 36.5 points a game.
I'm about to sneeze at some point in this answer, so I apologize in advance. I looked at that one yesterday, and I think that's a really good question. I mean, if you look at it, nobody on Tennessee's team averaged 12 points a game last year other than Dalton Connect. And, I mean, you go back to the year before, and I don't think anybody – I mean, I think Santi was the leading scorer at maybe 11 or 12 points a game. I'm going to go under, but but not much under. I mean, I think that's really close. I mean, I think around 35. I think if they get 35 points a game from that trio, I think the staff would be pretty happy. So I think that's a good question. I'm going to be conservative and just say under, just because I looked it up, and outside of Dalton, nobody averaged 12 a game.
I think it boils down to can somebody, I don't want to say get to 20 like Dalton did, but can somebody get to 16 or 17 points a game? Because I think that can alter that number.
Sure,
like,
I mean, they could.
I think it depends. Like, what's the high end mark on who's? I mean, like everybody assumes it's going to be Lanier, right? But like, let's say it's Darden Stone, like whoever. Like, what's that number? Is it 12? Or are they kind of just a melting pot, and every night it could be somebody different? Or is that there's that one guy that's the de facto guy?
Well, here's what I don't know about those three, and I got to see them. And I didn't know this about Dalton when he got there. Out of those three, Rob, is one of those guys going to be a guy that's a true isolation guy? That Rick Barnes tells everybody to go to the opposite corner and stand and get out of the way and let him go score the way he did Dalton Connect. And that's a big part of the reason why Dalton Connect's number was where it was. Yeah, he made 3 balls. Yeah, he played within the confines of the offense. But there was also closeout time with Dalton Connect, not just the Auburn game, but some other games where they basically just ran isolation and said, go get it for us. Is one of those guys going to be that kind of player in this offense with this team?
I mean, I don't think so, Hubbard, but that's not a knock on any of those 3. I mean, that's why, I mean, all 3 of us are going to be able to turn on the, ESPN next Wednesday night and see Dalton get drafted and still be able to watch the news at 10 o'clock. I mean, that's
not sitting around waiting.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a knock into those 3. I just, again, I'm just being conservative. I'll say under, but man, I think that's if you would have set an over and under for a bet, I think 36.5 is a really good one. If you wanted my $20, I'd put under, but I wouldn't be surprised if I lose that bet.
By the way, the NBA is going to find out they are not the NFL. Trying to do 2 nights of the draft, terrible.
Come on, yeah.
Athron wants to know who is the one player across any sport that had serious interest in the Vols that didn't play here that you would have loved to watch play at Tennessee. I'm going to take Mookie Betts. That's what he said.
Is that not a laydown, Trevor Lawrence? Is that not a Trevor Lawrence laydown?
Well, yeah. I mean, the question is serious interest. I mean,
maybe not serious.
It was on his part. It just wasn't on that coaching staff's part. I mean, basically. But yeah, I mean, that's the first name that came to me. Was Trevor Lawrence. AP, did anybody jump out to you?
I mean, I think Mookie Betts is a great one.
Yeah,
I really do. I think just like looking, especially like after the fact. Like, where he's at in his career in Major League Baseball. I mean, you talk about, speeding up the process a little bit for Vol baseball if he had been here just as a one-man show.
You got a lot of those guys in baseball because of the way the draft factors in. You had A.J. Przinsky, who was the catcher that at one point was committed to Tennessee and obviously moved on. So it's a little more common in baseball, I guess. I'd have loved to have seen Randy Moss in this here. I mean, he visited, but I don't know that was ever really serious. But I mean, you go back to a lot of guys like that, but Betts makes the most sense because of where he was and what he would have done for baseball. Commits by the end of July, over and under 2.5. AP.
I said in the podcast, I think they're going to get 3 before the end. Oh, sorry. By the end of July, I thought they were going to. I said they were going to get 3.
Commits by the end of July, over under 2.5.
Well, that's easy. That's over. I mean, if it's not over, something's bad wrong. It's something is bad. I'm leaving the site for an extended sabbatical. They don't get more than 2.5 commits between now and the end of July.
And that means they didn't put any hay in the barn this summer. That's for sure, which is a bad thing. All right. Who would have been the best quarterback in Heupel's offense out of all the Tennessee greats, Rob Lewis?
The answer to that question with any coach, it's Peyton Manning. I mean, let's don't overthink it. I mean, Josh Dobbs could run around. Heath Schuler was a great athlete. It's Peyton Manning. He's the best quarterback in anybody's offense, not named Barry Switzer.
Not named Wishbone. AP, you got somebody?
I will go opposite Robbie. I mean, I love Peyton. I just, with the whole moving around dynamic, I would go Heath Schuler. But that's the one I want to see in this offense would be Heath.
Yeah, I mean, with Peyton running the show, it would be a different type of offense, because of the lack of,
his ability to go fast would be pretty mesmerizing when you think about where he was at, calling it at the line of scrimmage and stuff. And I know he wasn't necessarily there when he was here like he was when he got to the Colts and he was 8 years in the league, but still, like, such a smart guy. I do think it would have been fascinating to watch him run the speed, the tempo.
I think you'd almost have to have offensive linemen with batons, like in a relay race. I mean, he'd be going so fast. I mean, like a hockey shift for offensive line.
We're making a line change. Yeah, I mean, I think that part. I think athletically, I would like to see Heath Schuler play in this era of college football. Period. Athletically, I mean, there's some things he would have to refine, but athletically, he was ahead of his time in what they're asking quarterbacks to do. in this world of college football. So that would be fun. Same question, but for running backs. I don't think running back, I mean, a great running back's a great running back. I don't care what the offense is. Jamal Lewis would have put on a show in this offense. So would Charlie Garner. There's a lot of guys who would put on a big-time show in this offense. Great running backs they transcend any offense to me. I mean, right? I mean,
agreed.
I mean, Alvin Kamara in this offense would have been terrific, no question. I think Charlie Garner would have. But I also think Jamal Lewis at 240 pounds would have been terrific in this offense.
Well, Hubbard, to your point, I think Jim Brown would have been great. I mean, running backs just translate to me. I mean, I like you were saying. I mean, I think they just translate.
All right, one more real quick question here, and then we're going to get a break. Cosmo Kramer wants to know, is Jaylen Mosley still a take for Tennessee after his season-ending injury, or is Tennessee waiting to see how he does his senior season, AP?
Not much going on with Jaylen overall. He got hurt last year. I think a lot of schools are going to just kind of see how he does this year. And, could Tennessee double back around there? Sure. But I think right now everybody's kind of in a wait-and-see approach with him just because of the severity of the injury and just trying to see how he comes back from it.
All right, we're rocking and rolling here. Fast break. That was a fast blitz of questions out of the gate here on the Mailbag Podcast. When we're going to get a break here, and then on the other side, we'll answer more of your questions as we do this every week on the Mailbag Podcast, presented by our good friends at Exterior Home Solutions.
Severe weather can strike at any time in East Tennessee, and Mother Nature can do severe damage to the first and most important line of defense that you and your family have against Mother Nature, and that is your roof. Whenever she strikes, make sure that you call the people that I call. Make sure you trust the people that I trust, and that's my friends at Exterior Home Solutions, because they're more than friends, they're truly family.
Thanks again to our good friends at Exterior Home Solutions for their continued support of Volquest.com. We certainly appreciate that and hope that you will support our good friends there. If you have any of your outdoor needs, whether it's roofing, siding, windows, decking, fence, whatever, be sure and check them out at exteriorhomesolutions.com. They will take great care of you. You can give them a call. You can check them out online or give them a call at 865-524-5888. That is Exterior Home Solutions. Back to the questions we roll, and we go to ETSU Buck, who also equally loves the Vols. Why do you think college baseball?
That's his whole name? That's
a screen name. It's like it's like a
run-on sentence.
You got to click more to see his whole screen name.
That's fantastic.
Why do college baseball coaches tend to stick around more than college football and basketball coaches, i.e. Rod Delmonico? But you hear all the time about coaches being at their stop for 20 or 30 years. Why is there less movement in college baseball than there is in others? To me, guys, this one's pretty simple. Not every school in the country is committed to the sport the way that they're committed to other sports, right? I mean, if you're at a place in baseball and you're winning and your school is committed to winning and putting the resources in, why are you leaving? Right? I guess what I'm saying is there are fewer premium jobs in college baseball than there is in college basketball and college football, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the numbers are exactly, but I mean, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of movement in women's basketball. I mean, I would say, less money is what that's what you were saying.
There you go. I'm with Rob. It's not like you're getting a huge bump, to go from one school to the next in baseball. And I think there's some loyalty there. And I just think, I think just baseball's kind of built different as a sport overall.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's, and I don't know that how many college guys have a desire to be, pro managers. I mean, the grind's different, right? I mean, when you think about it, you're going to finish, if you're a college baseball coach, you're going to finish next weekend. And yeah, you got to go recruiting. I mean, you don't stop working, but you're also not doing whatever number of games that you're doing in minor league baseball, riding a bus for 14 hours, right? I mean, it's a different lifestyle as a college baseball coach.
What hotel you staying in for, 3 nights if you're playing the Smokies off exit 407 there in Sevierville?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a different mentality. So I think college coaches are in the college game because they want to be in the college game, and if they get a premium job, then they're going to stay in that premium job because, there's just not enough money to jockey around as much as you see in some other sports. Volunteered 87. I appreciated the discussion you had last week on coaches potentially losing value in the long term if they aren't seen as someone worth sending out on the recruiting trail now that someone like Chop could be out in their place. So I've got 2 follow-up questions to the discussion you guys had. Is there a limit on what you can pay someone like Coach Chop, as an example, or could you treat them like any other coach in terms of salary? It seems like baseball has a cap on those assistant salaries.
No, you can. If you want to pay Chop $500,000, you can. There's nothing stopping you from it.
If they want to pay the poster, the $500,000 to answer the phones in the recruiting office, they can.
Yeah,
there's no salary cap.
Yeah, and there's no cap on baseball. It's just the salary pool in baseball is not as deep as your football coach's salary pool. His second question is: any chance you could see less people jump to the NFL, and if they knew that would mean less time recruiting, or do you think the expectation is you're always on the road unless you're just bad at it, and we aren't going to make an exception for you just because you're an elite quarterback coach, O-line coach, etc.? Seems like the extra recruiting time was always the top reason you heard while people made the jump to the NFL game. Fair question here, AP. I mean, is there a chance that this could keep someone, a veteran coach, or someone who's a really good X's and O's guys but doesn't love recruiting, that there's a chance he stays in the college game and isn't looking to go to the league as fast as we've seen some guys try to get to the league?
Yeah, it could. Absolutely. You have a guy who doesn't really like recruiting.
He better be really good, really, really good.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
As development.
Yeah. But yeah, you could see that, but when you're normally talking about that, you're normally talking about older coaches. And what are the odds that an older coach is going to the National Football League late in his career?
Agreed.
Unless he already has ties there. He's going back.
Unless he has
Tracy Rocker, older coach, just felt like a good fit in the NFL. But if he didn't have to recruit, does that change things as far as like him just like developing coaching D-line? But again, most of these coaches, most of the coaches, even if they don't really love to recruit, they don't want people to have the idea that they can't recruit or they're looked at that way. So like they're all going to get offended. I'm telling you, the coaches that get taken off the road when this rule passed will be offended. It doesn't matter if they complain and whine and moan about having to go out and be gone for weeks on end to recruit. They don't want to be looked at that way.
I agree. And I think the other thing too is they don't want to be told who they're going to coach. Part of the reason those guys are in the college game is they don't like a GM and a scouting department handing them a roster and saying, go coach these guys. They're in the college game because they're going out to get the guys that they want to coach, which is an interesting factor in there. Here's what I wonder about this rule. The more I've thought about it and looked at it, and I want to ask both of you guys this question. If you're a head coach and you're trying to decide what to do, do you look at, do I take an assistant off the road, or is the easy answer to say, I'm going to take my 2 coordinators off the road and they're going to manage both their sides of the ball year round. And they're going to be
good thought.
Now the issue is if your coordinator is a quarterback's coach and he recruits quarterbacks exclusively, you can't really afford to take that guy off the road. Right.
I don't have a lot to add. I agree with both of them. That would be my first thought. You take the coordinators off, and then my second thought would be, well, you can't take the offense coordinator off. So again, all I'm saying is I echo your sentiments there on both things.
Unless your offensive coordinator is not the quarterback's coach, which was Tennessee's setup in 22 was Alex Golish. It's not their setup now, but I just wonder if that's maybe not the easier, but one way that coaches look at it around the country. That'll be something to watch with this rule as it at some point I think does come into play.
Well, AP, don't you think Hubbard? Don't you think it's easier for UT because your head coach is so deep into the quarterback room? I think it would be easier for Josh to take his offensive coordinator off the road than it would be
Kirby.
for most head coaches. For Kirby Smart.
Now here's the question though. I mean, other than evaluating in the spring, how much does that guy need to? I mean, the road is it's really about evaluations, right? I mean, you go by and see guys in November and December, but AP, they've been committed for 4 or 5 months for the most part there. I mean, so I don't know. I think there's going to be some interesting decisions. I'm not saying that in-home recruiting is losing its emphasis, but it feels different than it did, 4 or 5 years ago when they were making, the month push to get it closed out, because so many guys are going to be done and classes are going to be finished out by the time you get to the first part of August, that it just feels different. So we'll see. Swagger 12, if there's one commit next weekend, which recruit would it be? My guess is Bryce Jenkins. I don't know if anybody's going to do anything on Sunday, right, AP? I mean, that's just kind of not the norm, right?
It's not their style.
Yeah, it's not what they do. How hard will Tennessee push for Christian Gass?
I'd love to have Christian Gass.
And is there any chance Eric Winters comes in for an official visit?
I don't think so. I think his commitment to Auburn ended that.
AP, are you confident Tennessee can flip Shady and Onis momentum back to the Vols?
Yeah, I mean, those kids have kind of been all over the map, and you get the final say here. We sit here on Thursday the 20th of June, and I'll be really surprised if Shady Hayward doesn't end up at Tennessee. Really, really surprised. Now, Onis, I still think Tennessee's got the inside track there, but that one to me is not as cut and dry. Shady, I think he's bounced around a little bit all on purpose to, trying to drum up. Again, when everybody knows I'm going to Tennessee. Why is that? Oh, yeah, I've told everybody I'm leaning to Tennessee for like 3 months. So, then all of a sudden Georgia's the leader, South Carolina's the leader, Florida's the leader. And then he looks like he's all over the map, but I think it's just in an effort to come full circle and have a little suspense and drama for him.
And his final question is, what are Tennessee's chances with Utu and Die? We talked about Die a little bit earlier. What do you think they are with Utu?
With Utu, I think that they're they're in it. But so some other schools. I think this weekend will be pivotal for him. And Die, same thing.
Nashville 615. Rob, do you think Tennessee should have seriously considered firing Butch Jones after he lost to Vanderbilt in 2016? I feel like that at that point everyone knew that he wasn't going to be the long-term answer.
Hindsight, yes. It's pretty easy. Again, hindsight, yes. I don't remember being on a soapbox calling for it at the time, but yeah, looking back, obvious answer, yes.
You weren't going to make a change. He was 5-0,
and
in the top 10. He'd beaten Georgia and Florida.
Yeah,
you don't make that change that year.
Looking back now, absolutely.
Looking back, that was the game that changed it all. The 26 Vanderbilt game, or the 16 Vanderbilt game. Absolutely, it did. But at that point, everyone had concerns, but there wasn't this groundswell. Get rid of him because he did beat Florida and Georgia.
You beat Georgia and Florida. No Tennessee coach is getting fired after that.
Yeah.
If those are the only 2 games you win in the SEC, you're probably not getting fired.
Probably not. Seems like there's been drama with Jaden Perlotte the entire time he's been committed to Georgia. What makes the Tennessee staff comfortable with him, and is he a future NFL talent?
Talent-wise, yeah, he's pretty legit. Comfortable with him? I don't think you're ever comfortable with any kid until they're signed and they're here.
Ernest P. Vorel. What's the 2 deep in the secondary, and who is the dime back? Not the nickel back, the dime back. Who would be their 6 DB?
I'm interested in the answer to this question, AP.
Here's where I go. AP's ducking out. You go McCoy and you go Ricky Gibson. That's your top 2 corners. Your third corner is going to be Jordan Matthews.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Corner. I'm doing 2 deep, so let's do 2 deep at corner.
Kid from Temple is in the 2 deep,
right? And then Jordan Matthews, and then Ricky Gibson and McCoy. That's your top 4 corners, right?
Yeah, Matthews. probably wouldn't go there, but I think it's a coin flip. But sure, yeah.
Okay, who would be the other 4? Who is battling Matthews for the 4 spot?
There's a couple of different guys, but yeah, I'm with you there. Let's just keep going.
Okay. Two deep at nickel is Jordan Thomas and Boo Carter.
Yep.
2 deep at safety. I'm going to start with Turrentine, and then I'm going to start Thomas, Jacoby Thomas. I know there's Will Brooks is in it. They're in the 2 deep. He might be the starter. Who's your other safety, AP?
Oh, it's Will Brooks. I'm taking Will Brooks to start as of right now.
Okay.
And
start
we'll
with
see if somebody
Turrentine.
gets past him in fall camp.
All right. So then you got Jacoby Thomas. Those are your top 3 safeties.
And Slaughter.
Okay. John Slaughter.
That's your 4.
And then when I go dime, Rob Lewis, I'm probably going to put Boo Carter in. He would be my first defensive back in.
I would go. I think they would go Jalen McMurray.
Okay. Makes sense.
Philosophy wise, I mean, this maybe is an inside baseball question, or is it just, is his philosophy best available, or does he want that his dime guy? Is that a nickel back? Is that a safety, or is it?
I don't know. That's a great question.
Situational.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's probably situational to some degree, but I don't know exactly if that guy. Typically, that guy's been a corner, but I just wonder if Boo has got enough corner that he could be that guy, or if it's McMurray from Temple. It's good. I mean, it's one of those two. I would totally agree with that. I had not thought about McMurray in that role, but that would certainly make a lot of sense. But I don't know exactly what they're looking for and how that role is defined. It may be situational, maybe the opponent and that type of thing, matchup, that type of thing. They don't play a lot of dimes, so it doesn't really matter. I mean, at the end of the day. Max Salzman, I've been looking at our current roster and I have some questions on players' development that I've not heard a lot about. Wide receiver Nathan Leacock, Nate Spillman, Sham, Hobbs, Jalen Smith, Ethan Davis. These guys may have been talked about, but I haven't heard a whole lot on them. I really like those guys in terms of their recruitment and developmental upside. Hobbs is going to play. Everybody loves his upside and his future. Ethan Davis is going to play. AP is about staying healthy. That's the key for him. Sham is battling to be the starting guard, left guard. That's where those 3 are. Jalen Smith battling to try to be in the 2 deep.
Yes. As really, I think was kind of forgotten at one point a year ago and has really battled and come on. Could think he can help the team. Nathan Leacock buried on the depth chart as of right now. We'll see if he can dig his way out.
And Nate Spillman is in the same spot.
Yeah, buried on the depth chart.
Yeah, because they're really deep at the receiver position. Shell Ray 14, what would winning a baseball title mean to the University of Tennessee as a whole?
I think it'd be huge. I mean, it's a national championship in any sport. I mean, if they won the national title in golf or swimming or whatever, it's a big deal. Maybe it's not a big deal to the broad masses because they don't keep up with it, but I mean, I think Tennessee baseball has grown and grown and grown, and people watch from home now. They've Tony come along at the perfect time when football was in the forest and the desert, for 40 years. Felt like, he gave Tennessee fans something to buy into, to love up, and that's just continued as football has kind of bounced back under Josh Heupel. So, I think it'd be a big deal. Is it as big as the football national title? No. Is it as big as a potential basketball national title? No. But it's still a big deal. And, I think you hang your hat, and tip your cap to what Tony's built to this point.
Rob, has there been a coach come through who's been better at PR?
No.
Without trying to be better at PR than Tony Vitello has?
I mean, love him or hate him, man. Bruce was pretty special at that stuff. I mean, I feel like he could go over the top sometimes where I don't think Tony ever comes across as anything other than genuine. Or and I'm not being critical of BP, but I mean, sometimes he could be hunting the moment or kind of hunting a soundbite. And I don't think
when you paint your chest.
Yeah, that's a good. Whereas I don't think Tony's ever anything but completely genuine. And again, I'm not being critical of BP. I mean, BP can work it could
yeah,
absolutely work it. But I think it's a little different.
Yeah.
I mean, BP could, do it with a twinkle in his eye, like a carnival barker. Whereas, I don't think Tony's got that huckster showman in him like BP does.
It just doesn't feel to me like Tony is trying to work it. And maybe he is. Maybe he has a lot of thoughts, in downtime where he's thinking about, hey, how can I market this? How can I market that? He doesn't come across that way. Like, everything in the growth has obviously been around success, AP, but there's some organic stuff there, right? Like, you get thrown out of a game and you do a lemonade stand outside the stadium. You know what I mean? Like, and then this week, the story about them sending the banners to the kid at Northern Kentucky, that he was never going to tell anybody he did that, right? Like, it's really, it feels very organic with Tony. It doesn't feel, hey, let's have a marketing meeting to figure out what we're going to do to brand ourselves.
You're telling me he didn't go to the Butch Jones School of Marketing Branding?
No, I mean, it just doesn't. It just feels different.
His name definitely did not come up in this conversation.
But you know what I'm saying?
I think you're right.
Because here's the thing with baseball. With baseball, more than basketball or football, obviously those sports, you do have to sell it harder to get people's attention. Winning changes things. Don't get me wrong, but you do have to try to sell it. But it doesn't feel like, he's out there doing 2-for-1 coupons and we're doing, at every turn there's Tony Vitello's, flashing in front of a camera, doing an interview and all this other stuff. It just feels different. And you're right, AP. It was the perfect timing for him to come along. Perfect. It just was a perfect storm.
You're right. He never knew that any of that was going to get out. Just like, when you send, Matt Ray that $25,000 bonus check, you don't ever expect that to get out. I mean, like it
yeah. Anyway, as for what it would mean, I mean, it's pride. You're never going to make real money in the sport, but it's certainly a measure of pride if this team could go win a national title. All right, let's keep rolling here. Sailor Vol, what do you believe is Josh Heupel's greatest strength and weakness as a head coach? For me, his greatest strength is culture building. He's clearly has been the same guy culturally since his days as quarterback for Oklahoma. I think his greatest weakness may be how he structures getting ready for road games. It's difficult to win on the road, so I don't kill him for it. But there have been multiple underperformances over the years where his team didn't play up to their standard on the road. I don't have the sheet in front of me. I looked it up last night. I think of their 7 road losses, 5 of them have been to ranked opponents. Their road schedule's been tough. They struggled on the road last year, but I think they had hard times along the way. They're averaging about 35 points on the road. I think they're averaging giving up about 34 points on the road.
Yeah, their bad loss was at Florida. Like Missouri, Tennessee fans can hate on that. Missouri was really, really good last year. They were really, really good. Look at their bowl game. I mean, you know what I mean? Like they played well against everybody.
Look at the draft. Look at the NFL draft.
I get Tennessee, Missouri, but at the same time, like, they were really good. That was not a bad loss, period. Now, would you like to have competed a little harder? Would you like to have actually scored some points? Yes. But, the loss to Missouri, not a thing. Now, the loss to Florida, that was trash. That was bad all the way around. And, it was like Rory over a 3-foot putt going forward.
Well, here's the other thing, too. I mean, you look at it, though, on the road, other than Missouri, Rob, they really haven't gotten off to bad starts on the road. So you go back to your preparation and say, well, you're not ready to play on the road. I mean, they scored on their opening drive at Florida. I mean, they jumped out on Alabama last year. I'm just looking at last year. I mean, his first year they had a lead at Alabama, I think at halftime. So they haven't been a bad starting team on the road, right? I mean, they've gotten off to good starts. They just, that first year they didn't have enough horses to finish.
Yeah, and they've won 2 big road games at Kentucky. Really big really big games at the time. for where this program was. And I went, was this the second quarter at Florida was the meltdown?
Yeah.
Last year.
It was a complete meltdown.
I'm with you. I mean, if I think about not playing well on the road, I think about not being ready to play out of the gate. And that, I mean, I don't, when they've lost, that hasn't, been the case, or at least, typically not the case.
Now, I think they've had too many penalties on the road. I mean, they have penalties at home, but they probably have had too many operational penalties on the road. And that's something that we talked about with Josh Heupel, crowd noise and all those things. That's something that they have to improve at there. As for his greatest strength, I do think he's a player's coach. I think guys like playing for him, Austin. I think that's probably it probably is one of his greatest strengths, aside from his scheme.
His greatest strength is he is a regular guy. Like, he doesn't walk around going, "Come go to Tennessee." Like, it's just not who he operates. Like, I mean, he is like when he sees my kids, or like if I'm talking to him and my kids are in the car, and sometimes they'll engage with him, right? Like he goes right into like dad mode. Like, I mean, like wants to know about how their day's going, all that stuff. Like he's just a regular guy. I think that's his greatest strength. Like, he doesn't, it never gets too high, never gets too low, and just good human being.
All right, we got 3 to go, and we're out the door here. Southerner 98, with the NCAA allowing company logos to be advertised on fields, do you ever see the day coming where the company logo will be visible on jerseys? And if so, how far away is that day?
I could see it. I mean, look at the NBA. Like, when they first kind of brought that up, you thought like, oh, it's going to be like, all over it. But it's like this little thing up here. Like, I don't even think you notice it anymore. Like, it's not altered the jersey look, so to speak. So I think if you do it tastefully, it won't be a thing, right? Like, especially if you get somebody that's like got your same color combination, but I think it's definitely probably not too far down the road at some point for somebody. Maybe not Tennessee, but for somebody.
Man, this is we won't answer this question now, but how will that work with NIL? Do you think? Man, how would it? What if a kid, has a NIL deal with Weigels and Pilot, has a deal, where they have their logo on Tennessee's jerseys.
Yep.
Well, but I mean, if you got to deal with Adidas and you're a Nike school, what do you do? Right? You wear the uniform that they give you. That's part of it. Now you can do your other logo stuff on your Instagram and everything else, but I don't think that you can come in and stop. I mean, I think it's coming at some point. To what degree and when, I don't know. It's just you keep hearing talk about money, and it's just like the logos on the field. And I know some people don't like that, but guess what? That's going to be a large deal for a lot of schools, a large financial deal, and to help offset their costs. That means they're not coming back and upcharging more on a premium seat, or it resting on a couple of donors
or charging two more dollars a beer.
Yeah, I mean, now some will say, well, they're going to charge them anyway because they want more money. There's never enough money, and I understand that point, but that's, I don't want to say free money, but that's money that's not to the cost of the fan at all.
I think it is free money.
It costs a stencil and some paint.
Yeah,
that's exact. I mean, I get it, and I know fans and know people really well that won't like it. But you talk about an athletic director, you're going to give me $10 million to put, First Tennessee on the field. Where do I sign? Where's that contract?
Yeah, exactly. Bud Fox wants to know, who was the overall better recruiter in your opinion between Pruitt and Butch, and why? Both had highlights, lowlights in terms of recruiting. Butch probably had higher rank classes on paper, but curious where you land on this one. He says this is just an assumption that Dooley was the third best recruiter out of that trio.
By the way, Brandon Parks just stroked out when Rob said First Tennessee and not First.
Yeah, it is First Horizon.
I'm sorry, Brad. B Parks, I apologize.
We'll see if he can get his Tundra back on the road.
That's a great question. I don't know. I'll probably take Pruitt, but I mean, Butch certainly had some really good classes. I think they both made mistakes. I thought Pruitt did a fantastic job of bringing Memphis back into the play, whereas Butch never really recruited Memphis. But again, I think you can look back at both staffs and say, okay, hey, look at that guy's in the NFL, that guy's in the NFL. Like, they were right on some guys.
I think it's interesting, Rob, because I think Butch early was recruiting wise was good. I thought his recruiting tapered off the longer his tenure went, which is why Pruitt probably inherited a worse situation talent wise in some regards, whereas Heupel inherited some talent, but he inherited a mess culturally he had to fix. So it was kind of two different things there. But I don't think you can just base it on what the next guy after them inherited, because I think Butch's early stuff was really good. When you look at that Reeves Maven class, Josh Malone, Derek Barnett, all those guys. Heard. Todd Kelly Jr. That was a really good class of football players.
Nobody takes more cheap shots at Butch than I do, but I will give him credit. Tennessee had some really, like in-state, had some really nice classes for a few years, and Butch had to get Jalen Hurd, had to get Jalen Reeves Maven, and to his credit, he did. There were some big time in-state recruits, and Butch, Butch, got him home, and he had to. And I'll say the biggest difference, AP, you were certainly way more in the weeds with it, especially with Pruitt than I was. My biggest, I guess, difference in a positive for Pruitt, you would never seen Pruitt sign a 4-star from Florida just because he was a 4-star, just because it might make his class look better.
That's correct. He went straight off evaluations, and there was a lot less paper 4-stars. Like Butch had fantastic classes early on, and Hubbs is right. And then there late, he kind of got sideways with a few people, and all of a sudden started missing on a lot of in-state kids, and took a bunch of paper 4-stars that on paper looked good, but most people out there in the recruiting world go, I don't think that kid's very good, and turns out they weren't, and they didn't play a whole lot. So Rob, what are you holding there, Rob? You got tulips, daisies. What you got there? You give Butch's flowers. I just didn't know. You talk about the ultimate face turn. This is like.
I took a shot when I took the paper. I let the paper 4-stars there for you. Come on, I took a shot going out the door.
All right. Speaking of going out the door, that's where we're heading, as that's going to do it for this edition of the Volquest.com podcast, presented by our good friends at Exterior Home Solutions. Be sure and check them out and thank them for their support. Be sure and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and obviously take advantage of our promo that we've got going through our YouTube channel for Volquest.com. It's another busy recruiting weekend. You're not going to want to miss out on all the coverage coming up on Sunday. Recapping the official visit weekend. Baseball is going. We've obviously got full coverage of that in Omaha with Eric Kane. Lots and lots of stuff going on, and hard to believe we're over halfway through the month of June. We're almost a month away from the start of fall camp. So football's right around the corner. There's never been a better time to be a part of the Volquest.com family. I encourage you to do so. Check us out at Volquest.com. He is Austin Price, Rob Lewis. I'm Brent Hubbs. Thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of your Thursday, everybody.